This kind of a conversation sounds like the kind of thing that would be on some sort of weather channel now, to say, oh, back in whatever.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this real estate and lifestyle podcast that is altogether unconventional, unique, unusual, and seriously, it just ain't typical. I'm Eric. She's Donna. We are the Real Siblings. We're both professional real estate agents with Keller Williams, working in the Southwest states we call home, which is Tucson, Arizona, and San Antonio, Texas. Right now in Pipe Creek, on the time of our recording, the temperature outside is 74 degrees, and in Tucson, Arizona, it is a balmy 1 degree hotter at 75 degrees. This podcast, we blend lifestyle with real estate as we communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. The topics vary. Conversations always go in a lot of different directions. We ultimately endeavor to provide our listeners with insights into the real estate industry, better equipping them for their next real estate transaction. Now, sit back, relax. Thanks for joining us. And
let's enjoy the heat.
Enjoy the heat. Why is that important today?
I know. So Eric, he comes up with most of these ideas, you guys, and then he just sends them to me. So it's a good thing that one of us is more organized. And I asked him, I said, Eric, this is my fireplace behind me in the picture. I go, is that your fireplace behind you? And if you're watching this, it looks like it's somewhere from old England or...
Oh, yeah. Big old hearth, medieval kind of look to it.
With some
yes, that's mine.
With some great wrought iron. And if you've ever seen any of Eric's Christmas pictures and his part-time job during that season, which you should, because we've talked a lot about it, his fireplace has candles in it and a lot of Christmas Santa-y things all year round.
Never, ever in 22 years have I lit a fire.
My fireplace behind me, on the other hand, is an electric one because I did burn wood once. I bought like the 6 pieces of wood you can buy at the store. I burned 2. I decided it was too much work. And then I had an electric one put in, which, you guys, is interesting. So if you're watching this, Eric was just teasing me because I have a jacket on. I'm a little cool. So I have become a weather wimp, right? And it might be the same temperature inside as outside. I don't know. Might only be 72, but I'm a little chilly. So that fireplace, it has a little bit of a kind of a fan noise to it, but it does blow out and helps me get warm in the winter months up to about 75 degrees. And if you look real close there, as you can see the reflection of my recliner that I sit in so that I can get warm.
Yeah, my finger's pointing to your fireplace now.
Okay, that's helpful, Eric. Yeah.
That was so helpful.
Yeah. So we just you decided, and it seemed like an interesting thing. So what does having heat even mean in these places we live, where it's pretty warm compared
yeah. What were our February? Okay, so this will be coming out on the 28th. It is February 23rd, and we're both mid-70s.
This is why people are here this time of year. They like
very sunny, low humidity. Even for us, we're low humidity. It is a spectacular day outside, despite the allergens, and that's a reference to the last episode.
That's true. I've had itchy eyes today, and I said I don't have allergies. I think I talked myself into it now.
Well, if for anybody who's been a listener before, we talked in a couple of episodes of what does it mean? How do you stay cool when you get into our extreme hot days? So for us in Arizona last year, that meant that we had the highest number of triple digit days ever recorded, 2023.
Wow.
And so cooling is a much bigger deal. But guess what? It gets cold too.
Yep.
And
you're going to share the numbers that you have?
Yeah, cold in the desert. So I'll put the link in the show notes when this is done. But I found a website called extremeweatherwatch.com, and it lets you search by city or state. So wanted to be prepared with this. In Tucson, Arizona, which is where Donna is sitting right now, the record number of freezing or below freezing days that occurred in 1 year, 365 days, was 53 days.
53 days, you guys, below freezing in Tucson. But that was like a long time ago, huh?
Yeah. You remember. 1922.
It's like 100 years ago. But 53 days. Wow.
Yeah, and what surprised me, and in looking at that same thing, I looked at San Antonio. So San Antonio record since I've been walking this earth, and I'll say I was walking by the time I was 1 year old, right?
Right, sure.
Yeah. Not here in San Antonio. That was in Lindsey. But in 1966, the record number of freezing or below freezing days in 1 year was 36 days in 1966. It was tragic. All right, so we need to contrast that for you. Why are we chuckling? Why are we smiling? Why can you hear the...
Yeah, Lindsey, Ohio.
Lindsey, Ohio, which Lindsey, we've mentioned in the past, is so small. Lindsey was not searchable on this app. Apparently, we don't rank as... At 450 people, it does not rank to make Extreme Weather Watch. So I went to where we went to high school, which is in Fremont, right next door. First jobs, that sort of thing, were right in that area.
Yeah.
We go back to the year 1926.
Okay.
And here's where the big contrast occurs. Number of days in the year 1926 that were freezing or below freezing, 158 days. So somewhere between 3 or 5 to 6 months, the temperature was freezing or below in 1926.
You know what's weird is now I kind of feel like I want to know those places that are already always cold, like International Falls, Minnesota, and because of weather changing, right? I wonder if they had like 8 months of freezing temperatures and now it's only 6. Like
it has always surprised me, being a veteran of the Army.
Yeah.
That with all of the bases we have in the Rocky Mountains, which is what I consider to be mountains, where they decided to place the 10th Mountain Division, 10th Infantry Division, Fort Drum, New York. Why? Because New York upstate gets colder than the mountains do.
Wow. That's fascinating.
That's where you do your extreme cold weather training.
Yeah. So Eric, since you and I talked, like we always do before we start recording, I've been thinking about the houses. So the house on Lynn Street, the 1868, we had the wood burning fireplace in the TV room or library, whatever Dad, called it.
Yeah, the library.
And then we had that wood burning stove in the entry room off the porch. And Dad, I think, put that in. I don't believe that.
Oh, yeah. No, Dad put that in.
Yeah.
I remember I was still at the house. I think you were out in Arizona at that time, your first time out in Arizona or on the road someplace.
Okay.
When Dad decided to put that fireplace in. And when we did, he had to rebuild the chimney up on the roof.
Ah, okay.
So Dad was afraid of heights.
Yeah.
But Dad was also the handyman. He was going to do the work himself.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how Dad was trying to put a chimney on the 2-foot rail that was the edge of the mansard roof. If you ever look at that chimney, go by, those of you who are in Lindsey, go check out these facts. You will see that one of the corners of the chimney turns in. Not because it was an artistic thing. It was because Dad was gripping onto one side and leaning into that side where the bricks were.
That's funny.
Holding on for dear life so he didn't fall off. So he actually has a twist to it.
It's weird to think about the fact that we had, there was heat in the house, probably fuel oil, I would guess.
Fuel oil. Yeah, we had a fuel oil
tank. So we had
basement.
heat. But we used that fireplace in that room off the kitchen all the time. The one in the TV room we might use if we were in there, in the library. But we didn't burn that all the time every day. But certainly both of those provided a lot of heat for us. And I just have to say this is a tangent and an aside. when we bought and moved into that house, as if I had anything to do with it, it was it was a kind of a pale green carpet, you guys, and it not quite a shag, not quite plush or whatever. That carpet was still in the house when Dad sold it. So we moved in 1973. Two. Okay.
Yeah, summer 72.
Yeah, that's right. Ninth grade. And then Dad sold it in 2001, I think, I want to say, something like that.
Yeah, he got married the same year. So he either sold in 2000 or 2001 is when it closed. I think it was finally in the spring of 2001. And
my point in that is that wood burning stove that was in the room off the kitchen, which for those of you in town, it was off of Lynn Street. That carpet was still there. And I have to honor our mother and the fact that we cleaned and vacuumed every single day, or that carpet would not have survived. And I didn't like it at the time, but dang, that carpet held up. And thanks to Spieldenders, right? Should we say thank you?
I was going to say Spieldenders. And Dad did not pick because it was the color. He picked because it was the reduced price.
Yeah.
The work he was doing, it was, what can I get at the most economical price to get the job done? Imagine
that.
Because that yellow-green carpet did not scream 1868 brick Victorian.
This would be true, but then we found, well, anyway, all that it is just to say, when I think about, I have a tile floor in front of this fireplace. And even then, I didn't want to have to deal with the mess of wood and ashes. And we did it every day for all those years that we lived there. And then the house, the first house on Main Street that we lived in as a family, it didn't have anything except that fake fireplace we put up for Christmas for Santa Claus.
So we could put the Christmas stockings up that Grandma Torsberg made for us.
That's right. Until Dad put a Franklin stove in the very back room. Do you remember that off the kitchen?
And that's when we first got the little love seat.
That's right.
That sat next to the fire on
Lynn Street.
So fuel oil, fireplaces, cut wood, purchasing fuel oil that we put into your basement. And we've talked previous episode going, today's day and age, to think that you're going to build a house and you would put a tank full of potential fuel in the basement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then to where we're at, you have a fireplace. I have a fireplace. Honestly, like I said, never, ever had anything more. I had a really kind of a cool black candle sconce that held 4 candles.
Yeah.
And that was the most flame that's ever been in that fireplace in 22 years.
Well, and partially, again, for those of you that have listened and know us, it's because Eric is always hot. He doesn't, he who plays Santa Claus.
Oh, stop it.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, stop.
Not that kind of hot, but whatever, Eric. So, yeah, Jeannie, your wife will be going, he is hot. But the man that wears shorts out on the deck in the snow. So it doesn't surprise me that you haven't burned.
That's right. Barefoot in the snow when Rich and Susan were in Colorado on the deck.
And then when Gil and I moved, we didn't have one on Walnut Street. When we moved to Lynn Street or down to Main Street before we left and came back to Arizona.
They had a big fireplace.
Up in the main level, which was beautiful. Yeah.
Not the bedroom level, not the basement level, but the mid-level living area.
Yeah. So
where your really cool kitchen was. Bring that forward to where we're at.
Yep.
And it's electric heat.
Yep.
In a newer build. And if it isn't a newer build, we have enough old houses in town, old being relative, but going back prior to air conditioning in houses, prior to heating systems in houses.
Yeah.
Some of those older houses did have chimneys, but now they're gone. They've been removed. So we have electric air conditioners, either window units or mounted in a central air, or a heat pump, which will provide some heat in the winter. And if not, we end up with space heaters. And as soon as you put space heaters in the middle of, people get them too close to the curtains, too close to the beds, too close to couches. And you'll wait for a 2-day cold spell and wait for the next news report where it says there was a house fire at.
Yeah.
And it started with, and then you'll start seeing the public service announcement, the PSAs for space heaters.
And, it's funny because I don't know what the offices are like there in town, but here it seems like it's either freezing or we're dying of heat. there's like no halfway. So if in fact the air conditioner for an entire office building is set to a certain temperature and I'm cold, then people have space heaters under their desks to heat their legs while it's air conditioning, the room that we're in or something. It's a fascinating
and how
thing.
many times in the summer do you go in and you have to take a sweater with you?
Mm-hmm.
Because the air conditioner is going so full blast
Yep.
that you're cold.
Yep. Then we get in the car and it's 100 degrees or 105 or 110.
And does the same thing ever happen in the winter? That's those days where you're talking about, is the heat on, or it's just that there's no air on, so it feels so much hotter?
So we just are getting that regulated. And I have a corner office right now with a lot of glass windows. So south and west, my windows.
Okay.
And
pretty warm then.
We just got new blinds last week and we've had nothing prior. And I am so thankful for the blinds because as we head into summer, it's going to be quite something. And it does make a big difference. And I don't have control over it. I have to talk to someone if I'm saying I'm freezing or whatever, and they control it. So we got to get a new control.
Oh, really? So your area does not have its own separate thermostat?
We do, but it's not working right. So we are waiting to get that, updated,
Well, and you try to take into account the cubic feet. You got to take into account the fact that it may be 20 degrees in the morning, but it's going to be 68 degrees in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And you're going to have that sun blazing in.
Yeah. Yep. Even if
now you said you think that you had some houses in towards downtown that have radiators, right?
Yeah. Yep. As the city grew first, we've had Davis Month and we had Old Fort Lowell and we had the university. So the university in downtown is how we grew from the barrio. So some of those older homes, there are some radiators, not a lot. And a lot of them have been changed as people have flipped houses and done all that. Oh, and you and I did talk about that when Dad sold Lynn Street. The buyers were veterans and he had to put heat upstairs and we never had heat upstairs to speak of.
Right. So, and maybe to go back and rehash that. So the big house on Lynn Street, 1868, had 3 bedrooms upstairs and the central room that kind of connected the 3 bedrooms. That's where Dad put in the half bath.
Right.
It was on the way around the staircase, directly above the heating duct from the dining room.
From the dining room downstairs.
That came up. There was one heating duct for that entire set of 3 bedrooms and open space.
Closest to your room.
In the middle of winter, closest to our room, which, fine, it could have been on your side. Luck of the draw, that was the shortest room to run ductwork. Dad didn't want to have to tear up floor to try to move ducts and put ducts anyplace else.
Yeah. So now flipping back to the radiator heat, because I'm guessing that some of the old homes in Fremont, on Burchard and some of that had radiator heat maybe still have it. And for those of us that have traveled a lot or ever lived in a home with radiator heat, I like radiator heat. I like it. It isn't crazy hot, but like if you're really cold, you can lean against a radiator typically. Oh, yeah. It's comfortable. And
at least the newer models where it's smooth. Right. If it's one of the old, really ornate kind of
you're not going to...
you lay there and you get those ridges on your back. And
But also in the bathrooms in Europe, how they have like radiator things to dry towels and stuff because they don't have big yards, they don't have dryers, they're whatever. And to me, that's a very comforting thing. I like the feel of the radiator heat much more than a light in my ceiling above my shower that's supposed to be my heat lamp.
Okay. And now one of the other things we did talk about outside of the houses, go to public spaces. You mentioned your office.
Yeah.
But in both of our regions, having outdoor dining space, outdoor patio space that's accessible 365 days a year.
Yep.
And to that end, they put those 8-foot towers that run on gas and they emit heat.
Yep.
And I was trying to go back to the days of running around in Toledo, the big city, and those areas that had outdoor space that was intended for socializing. And I just cannot remember. And we were having the discussion, is that because you just didn't have them because it was the middle of the winter, you fool, get inside? You didn't have outdoor space? Or were they just not available? Because they're all over the place down here. It's not uncommon to have a patio. And of course, if they're really over the top, they're going to have one heater for every 3 little round tables.
Right.
So the servers are kind of zigzagging, dodging and weaving and making their way around the tables and the people and the space heaters. And
yeah. Saying that makes me think of Caleb and Jessica's rehearsal dinner, because the rehearsal dinner where we did karaoke on the rooftop, and we ended up being inside more than outside because of how cold it was.
Because of how cold it was. It was Denver in November.
But there were space heaters outside, but it would never have been enough for those great big tall tower heaters.
Oh yeah, and we were on the 5th floor, wasn't it? Wasn't like
I don't know, fifth,
or was it even taller than that? It was the top floor in this building. So you got outside, you were higher winds and everything else. And yes, I went outside once. It was very refreshing.
Polite for the guy that likes cool.
for the guy that likes cool. Yesterday, I did a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And it was mid-50s in the morning.
Okay.
And the photo shoot started around 10:15-ish.
Yeah.
Temperature got up to 86 degrees the other day. Fortunately, I was done by around 12 o'clock.
Okay. So you didn't get into the crazy heat of the day.
But the new coat that I have is truly a red leather shearling coat. And I had to take it off and turn it inside out. And I had to do that because my arms, I was sweating so much, the fur shearling lining on the inside of the coat sweated it through at my cuffs. Not on the shirt and not through the shirt, but cuffs where my skin was in direct contact with the shearling and the leather.
The joys of being Santa in warm weather. It always, that makes me think about models who are doing the swimsuit edition somewhere in the winter, or whatever, and vice versa in the middle of the
We're going to the cliffs of Gibraltar or the cliffs of Dover, because the white cliffs are going to look great with this.
Beautiful.
The North Atlantic is never warm.
Yeah. I'm going to guess that back in Lindsey, that any of the house that I lived in on Main Street, I'm sure they still have the fuel oil. It will never come out of the basement, whether that is.
Right. Only if there's a fire, they have to rebuild.
Exactly. Otherwise, the tank is just there. And whether they ever put electric heat in, whether ever they do anything different, otherwise they'll just keep using fuel oil. And that's one of the things that the elevator has done. They've delivered the fuel oil. So,
One of those things that keep going. So we do have cold weather.
Yeah.
It's not as extreme. I do need to point out those dates that I have. That was for the number of days below freezing, or not necessarily that was the coldest year, because I didn't get enough chance to research it and see if there were extreme hot days that summer that kind of counterbalanced the number of freezing days. Just that those were the years where the temperature was at freezing or below freezing. And the number of days.
Yeah. This kind of a conversation sounds like the kind of thing that would be on some sort of weather channel now, to say, back in whatever year. And simultaneously, after having been, in Germany and in France the last couple of years and how hot it's been there, they're not equipped for the heat. So, one way or the other, there's change in the world.
There's always something.
Yeah. I had an inspection this morning, and the buyers are coming from Ann Arbor, and they've never lived here. They visited a lot, but all of the outside water lines and pipes were wrapped really well, and then covered with a plastic bag. And Glenn was looking at me and he was like, "What is this?" And I go, "Well, that's a spigot that if you wanted to fill the pond with the hose because you didn't trust that it was going to automatically happen with the timer." And he goes, "Why is it covered up?" And I said, "Because it could freeze." And he looked at me like I was a nut.
That just brings up the point, though, too. We have to cover, and it's like, protect your pipes.
Right.
Because there's no such thing in our areas as a frost level.
That's true.
It's not like Ohio, where you set pipes a certain depth down, so it was below the frost level. We don't have that here.
No. Right.
I've got main lines running to my house about 6 inches deep.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that could be devastating up where we grew up.
Yeah, that's true. Well, are we at a point, should we talk about what we're going to talk about next? Like in the next episodes? Or
upcoming drum roll.
What was that? Should we talk about what we're going to talk about next?
We're going to talk about what we're talking about, because
I'm so good
ready
with words.
to talk about what we're going to talk about. It's worth talking about.
Fixing to talk about. So next month, it's March.
I know. And I think there's got to be a little bit of March madness. And I know that's not a big thing to you, but it is.
I know, all you sportsy people. Yeah.
Right. So we gotta talk a little bit of that. But for those of you, we do have many listeners back in Ohio.
Yep.
Our small little hometown has a book that was written about it. Now, we're not talking like Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder, a series of diary type thoughts, but one of the longstanding families in town, and Mrs. Hathaway was the author, also a school teacher for both of us, wrote a book, 40 years ago now, right?
Oh, more than that, because
she wrote it and then she had to get it published and put into book format.
Yeah, so it was after she retired, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember.
So that book is called Seemann, and we'll discuss that.
Yep.
And then additionally, want to focus on something that I end up talking about quite a bit because of teaching. And that is the fact that there are numerous protected classes federally that we cannot discriminate against. One of those classes are people with disabilities. Yeah. And then still the number one form of discrimination is against people with disabilities. And
wouldn't you want to also add there, Eric, whether purposefully or accidentally?
No question.
Right?
No question.
Yeah.
You have a lot of older apartments there.
Mm-hmm.
And 2-story apartments didn't have elevators.
Right. Outside steps.
And it's outside steps. Yep. And if there's no interior, then if I wanted to live on a second floor and was in a wheelchair, could I do it? So, and you have a friend.
Yeah, we haven't asked her yet, but I'm going to ask my friend Evie if she would join us, because she has been super, super involved and proactive in helping a lot of churches, because she's a retired pastor, but not just churches, almost anywhere, how they need to actually work to accommodate those with disabilities and what that means. Because as a 5'10" tall female, I have no idea, right? If you don't deal with it, you don't deal with it. And I only have a slight inkling because of my knees when they've been replaced, and right. What it looks like for a short time to not be able to do things. So any of you who've, had a shoulder or an arm or an elbow or whatever, your pinky, and all of a sudden you realize you can't do certain things, that's a tough.
Yeah. If you have a dominant hand and that's the one that ends up in the cast.
Yep.
You can't even use a bar of soap. Yeah. What the heck do you do? So that's a sneak peek look coming ahead.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to be better at that. I've written this into most of the production notes, but we haven't really done it. So things to come. Stay tuned.
Yay.
Close us down, Donna.
All righty. So we wrap this up. We want to thank you for listening and joining with us as we talked about the heat where we live now and how we keep ourselves warm, but also as we stroll, cool, how we stroll down memory lane, and we talk about it in the life in the small village where we grew up of Lindsey, Ohio. And I think by now you've probably learned, but it's not just the houses, it's also the lifestyle. And we try to blend the two of those and think about that in our careers and our lives. So as we wrap this up, keep in mind that the goal here is to communicate, educate, entertain, and connect with you, our listeners. Did I get them all, Eric? Is that what
you got them all? I do CC.
Yeah. And if you're in Arizona, specifically, I'm in the Tucson area or South Central Texas near San Antonio. We are both realtors with Keller Williams, and we're here to help you find the perfect property for your family to call home and create your own memories. Then you can guest with us and talk about fireplaces. Or some. If you're across the United States or somewhere around the world, we're both part of an extensive network. I just mentioned someone coming from Ann Arbor, and we can help you find a professional real estate advisor that would be good to work with you wherever you are, whether you're buying or selling. So remember, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. And until next time, I am Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And we are
Our Real Siblings.
Thanks all.
Bye, y'all.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Siblings. It ain't easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.